There's different types of breakups. It would depend on whether you were blindsided by this breakup. It can be a different experience whether you're the person that's broken up with somebody. And we also have breakups that are amicable. People really need to talk and debrief. And the more that you can have a variety of people to do that with, you won't feel like you're burdening one person. Allow yourself some time where you're really thinking, you're really going through it all, you're letting all the emotions flow, and then you can say to yourself, okay, that's me done now, and then I'll do that tomorrow. Often we can look at it with rose-coloured glasses. You're looking back and just thinking, oh my gosh, we had so many good times, and how am I going to be without you? And you're forgetting the times that you fought and the times that things didn't go so well. You need time to heal. Really start coming back to your identity. When we're in a relationship, we compromise a lot. There's a lot of there's a lot of what would you like to do, and we can lose ourselves a little bit. If you can do more of your own work and get rid of your triggers, like figure out in your last relationship, what really triggered me, what really pissed me off, can I work on that individually so I'm not bringing that into the next relationship? Look after yourself, know what you want for the future. You're going into those dates much more solid. You're showing who you are. You're talking about what you want because you've thought about it. If you don't know yourself, you don't know what you're needing to look for.
Welcome everyone to the Reconnect Self podcast, the show that helps you ultimately rediscover what brings you joy. My name is Scott and I am your host and a filmmaker, and I'm here with my wife Tracey, who is a counsellor of some 20 years. Also a breathwork instructor and certified psychedelic assisted therapist.
That's correct.
Very good. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm well. Good to be back in the studio / dining room, kitchen lounge. Today, we're just going to jump straight into the episode today.
Yeah.
We're talking about breakups.
Yes, we are.
Which I know you probably deal with fairly often in your private practice.
Yes, I do.
So how do we want to start? We could start by telling our own stories. I think you've had more breakups than me. Or we could go into some tips and stuff straight away. What do you want to do?
Well, maybe we just talk about, the different types of breakups, because it can be a different experience whether you're the person that's broken up with somebody and made that choice and decision, or whether you're just on the receiving end of that and that wasn't your choice.
Yep.
And we also have breakups that are amicable.
Yes.
So there's different types of breakups, but I think maybe we can start with, the person that has made the choice to break up a relationship, and then we'll move into how someone copes with, that emotion that comes with not having any say in that and that not being your choice. As a relationship therapist, I always have to work with the person that has got the least motivation in the relationship to repair, because if you're trying to work with the person with the highest motivation, you're going to lose the person that's not really sure if they're going to work through anything, or if they feel like they can work through anything. They might have felt like they've tried things and nothing's changed and they can't keep doing that anymore. So you really need to see what that person's motivation level is in order to see if the relationship can be salvaged.
That would be hard, working with someone with low motivation to save the relationship.
It's really hard on lots of levels. I mentioned this in our cheating episode, that if someone's not so sure if they want to stay in the relationship and the other partner knows that, they're not going to want to bring things up, in the relationship that are annoying them, because they might feel like, I'm going to push you over the edge.
Yeah.
So it stops being a natural relationship and it starts being a bit more like I'm tiptoeing around.
Walking on eggshells kind of thing.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't want you making that final decision and thinking this is all too hard and actually, I'm done.
Yes.
So that person can really, hold their tongue a lot and not be totally transparent and honest. So that can be a really hard thing to navigate.
So I imagine in your private practice, do you see all spectrums of relationships in terms of length? Like obviously you'd see quite a lot of marriages, but do you also see,
long-term relationships
and newer relationships?
Yeah, and I've had people come to a relationship counselling when they've had a person overseas and they've only really had like 2 weeks in person together.
Oh my God.
And then they're trying to navigate a long-distance relationship with all different complications, and that can be pretty tricky too.
That's one area I do have some expertise in, is long-distance relationships, because I was thinking about this episode, right? And I probably have one long-term relationship breakup that I could discuss. And, we lived together, so it was a serious relationship. Every other relationship I've ever had has somehow involved long distance. Like, I had a girlfriend who lived in America. I had a girlfriend who lived in the UK. I had a girlfriend who lived in Melbourne.
Some might say commitment issues. You're choosing people that you can't actually...
someone who was extremely charming on holiday and then found nice girls and then ended up coming home to Perth and deciding, no, I still like you. I want to keep going. That happened a few times. But I can talk about the one where, we lived together for 3 years, I think. And I was going to make a joke that, you're the one, is it the breaker-upperer?
Me?
Yeah, and I'm the breaker-upperee. However, in my situation with the girl that I lived with, it was actually my decision to end it. But when I go into the story, like, it doesn't go the way that you'd think it was going to go. Okay, well, it feels like we've got quite a bit to talk about.
Yeah.
So, why don't we start? Because I imagine some people who are listening to this have probably been, it's caught their eye and they're probably dealing with something right now. Mm-hmm. So why don't we start at, like, if it's fresh. So let's say you've broken up in, I don't know, the last day, week, couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. What are some of the, I guess, things to be aware of? Like, how do you want to take care of yourself? How do you want to act and treat yourself during that period?
Well, I'd say in the very, very beginning, so this is in the first, couple of days, the first week even, take time for yourself. If you can, take time off work. You don't want to be anywhere where you feel like you could get triggered and be in floods of tears. So you kind of need to take that time for yourself to let that emotion come out. Mm-hmm. And you also want to be doing lovely things for yourself to really nurture yourself. It almost would be like if you imagine yourself with the flu, you're going to be really gentle with yourself, when you're physically not feeling very well. So we want to do that emotionally as well. So we're, maybe reaching out to our support networks and having some catch-ups, or maybe it's cancelling plans and just having time alone. So it's depending on what you feel like, you need. It would depend on whether you were blindsided by this breakup, whether this was something that, you both kind of got to a decision where you both thought it was for the best, even if, it is devastating. And I also want to point out that even for the person that has chosen to break up the relationship, they often feel like they're not very supported by people around them because it was their choice.
Yeah.
But that is still a really hard decision to make. Like, they're breaking up their family if they've got children. They're having to split finances and assets if, they've got some things combined. Or even just the familiarity of having that person in your life, day in, day out. That's a big change. So even if it's been your choice to say this isn't working for me anymore, that's still really hard.
Yeah.
So those people also need to really support themselves and to let people around them know, I still need support. Like, it might have been my choice, but this was really hard to make, this decision. And, it's not that I'm skipping off into the sunset where, I'm starting my new life. I'm still having to grieve the loss of this relationship also.
It did cross my gut feel is if they're skipping off into the sunset, they're probably not listening to this show.
That's probably not the one that's grabbing their attention. That's true.
They might be listening to the episode of Creating a Vision for Your Future. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you were talking about that, cancelling plans, I had like the Bridget Jones's Diary on the couch with the doona, eating a tub of ice cream. That's a cliche. What are some things that people could do you think?
I think definitely try and just nurture yourself, doing the things that you enjoy. If you do want to binge a show, to try and get out of your head a little bit, you can. You can go out into nature, try and ground that energy that's flowing through you. Try and just give yourself enough breaks so that you're not just in floods of tears, kind of the whole day. That would be exhausting, really draining.
Yep.
So try and, have those moments where you can have, a laugh with a friend. Sometimes people can have tears that turn into laughter, after a little while.
Yes.
But, allow that time for yourself to move through any emotions that are coming up for you. You're probably, being triggered by looking around your space if you've got, items of that person.
Yeah, I reckon that would be a super hard one.
Around, yeah. So this is a very personal thing. It might be that, you move some of those items that you're not being constantly triggered by staring at them, but you also might want to leave some things so it doesn't feel too different and, gaps in your furniture if you're, taking too much stuff out.
Yep.
So again, it's really, really personal of what you might need. I think try and talk things through. People really need to talk and debrief. And the more that you can have a variety of people to do that with, you won't feel like you're burdening one person.
No, that's a good idea.
I feel like some people go, oh, they're sick of me talking about this now, and it's only been a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that's because, prior to the breakup, they're talking about the relationship a lot. So they can feel like people are sick of hearing this.
Yeah. I want to touch on, you mentioned, have a break from the crying, but I know because you've told me that, and I've actually seen you do this where you trigger yourself on purpose. Mm-hmm. Is that, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, if people were either feeling like they were just really, really full, emotionally, and the smallest thing might trigger them, I would say that they've not emptied enough out.
Yep.
They're kind of just crying with the overflow. They're not really creating that big gap or that space to allow, those emotions to build up again, over time. So I would say maybe give yourself that space. You could go for a drive and, sit in a beautiful spot in nature, or you could do that in a, space in your house. But you would want to maybe listen to some songs or look at some pictures that do remind you of the relationship or of that person, and just let all the feelings come out. Give yourself a really, really big cry.
Yeah.
Like really empty that emotions out.
Like an ugly scream.
Yes, totally. Like get the ugly cry going. Just do it away from people so you don't feel self-conscious. And then, once you've done that, and as much as you might feel like they can go on forever, it won't. That big sobbing, deep cry, that won't last all day.
Yeah.
You'd be lucky to do that for 20 minutes of real proper full-on crying.
Yep.
And then, you want to ground yourself before you leave that space, whether that's, before you drive off. You want to make sure you're safe and back in your right mind. You're not in your emotions still. And if you're at home, move away from that space. So say you've done it in your lounge room, now move away, go into the backyard or go into the living room, go somewhere else so that you can shift out of that energy.
Yep.
And then you're just being really nurturing. I always talk in third person. So I would be saying to that, that person, speak to yourself like this. Okay, honey, what are we doing now? What can we get you for lunch? Really talking to yourself in a really kind, loving way.
If you are really going through it, like, is it a matter of just getting from moment to moment?
It can be. For depending on, what the situation is, it can literally just be you are trying to get through that hour.
Yeah.
Without thinking about that person or without ruminating about, everything. So try and give yourself times to think about it. So this is the same, with any sort of grief. I would say allow yourself some time where you're really thinking, you're really going through it all, you're letting all the emotions flow. And then you can say to yourself, okay, that's me done now. Once you feel like that's, closed, and then I'll do that tomorrow.
Yep.
So you feel like you're creating a bit more stability in your day, that you're not going to constantly be toppled over with these emotions.
What's your view on drinking?
Well, it can be a slippery slope for that one because people can use that to block and to numb.
Yep.
But really it just brings out all the emotions and it's a depressant.
Yep.
So it's not going to make you feel really great. I mean, it would be different in the context. Like if you're just at home on your own having drinks, that's not a good idea. If you're going out for a dance with your friends and you had a couple of drinks just to, loosen up a bit, then that's probably okay. But I would be really watching drinking and any sort of substance use around this time because it could be a crutch that you could really lean on, and that might make things harder for you moving on the other side of that. The other thing about that is usually when people have a breakup, it can be a time to sort of reset things, for themselves. And if they've been binging with the tub of ice cream on the couch or, drinking far more than they would, they're physically not going to be feeling very good.
Yes.
They might put on a few kilos and that makes them feel even worse.
Yep.
So we want to be careful of the things that can lead to us feeling, worse about ourselves or less self-confident.
You could binge Khloe Kardashian's Revenge Body. Wasn't that a thing?
Well, as long as you weren't just binging it, you're actually doing it.
For anyone who doesn't know, I'm pretty sure the concept, I never watched it, but the concept of that show is you have a breakup, you do these ridiculous workouts, and you get your revenge body. I did have a question on the back of that but I guess there is a period where you're going to mourn and grieve the relationship. I imagine that period of time differs for everybody.
Yes, it does.
And there's no right or wrong.
Nope.
And you can do the Bridget Jones thing and, feel bad for an extended period until you feel ready to do something else.
And just find those places where you can do things for yourself. I had a client that literally came and saw me every week for a year to talk about his breakup. Now, we talked about the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. Yep. But he needed it.
Yeah.
He just really needed that. But he also knew that, his friends probably didn't want to do the same conversations over and over. So he came to me.
Yep.
And that was perfect. He got the support that he needed to really process it and really understand it, because he knew that he wasn't done with it.
Mm. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what I mean. Like, it's going to take longer for certain people, and it obviously totally depends on the circumstances.
Yes.
I imagine the blindsiding thing is probably the hardest one to
I've had this, actually, to be honest, I've had this a couple of times in the last few months, which is a surprise to me, where people have been working in their relationships to trying to get it back on track, essentially, and then they've found out information during that period of time that shows that their partner actually isn't working towards the relationship healing.
Well, they're faking it.
Yeah. Jesus. They're setting things up in the background to move money, to get stuff sorted.
Yep.
But what they're saying to their partner is actually very different.
Yep.
That is I'm going to swear, it's a complete head fuck.
Yeah.
Because that person's thinking, who are you? You're behaving in a way to me that is completely different to what I'm finding out, in the background.
Wow.
And look, the things that they've found out is because they've looked at old phones or read a journal. So not the greatest ways, to find out. But to be honest, if they didn't know that information, that would be even harder for them, because they wouldn't be protecting themselves.
Absolutely. Jeez. Yeah, that would be brutal.
So then, of course, they need to really unpack that, because it makes them question, not the whole relationship, but certainly maybe the last 6 months or a year, or from whenever that information seems like it's sort of started from. It can really make them question everything.
Yeah, of course it would.
Yeah, so that's really, really hard.
So I guess with the blind side, that's where, obviously they didn't see it coming and most likely did not want the relationship to end. So what I wanted to ask is, like, getting in contact with the person who's just broken up with you. Like, I imagine there'd be a strong desire to try and fix it. Mm-hmm. What can I do to change your mind?
They will beg, they will plead. Yep.
So what do you tell those people? And, like, do you say, have a rule, like, put your phone away, lock it in a drawer, like whatever it is, like, because I imagine, and especially if alcohol's involved, there's going to be some decision making that's probably not optimal, whether you're drunk or not. You might just be grief or desperation. Mm-hmm. What do you tell people in that situation?
Well, think about why you're wanting to contact that person. Like, what are you wanting to get out of that phone call or that conversation? Are you likely to get that? Because they would know that I've talked to you 5 times about this already. I've already begged and pleaded and, seen if there's anything else we could do, and you've said no. So think about, how would you handle another rejection? Yeah. How would that feel if they're going to say no again? Is that going to leave you feeling worse than what you feel right now? Yeah. It's like any sort of craving or a peak, moment of us wanting to do something, whether it's reach for the chocolate or the drink or the whatever else. Same with reaching for the phone. It's going to have that peak of, I really, really, really want to do it. But if you can distract yourself past that moment of temptation, it will reduce. Yeah. So maybe it's ringing a friend and, talking it through with them and seeing what they say. Maybe it's just delaying it by a certain amount of time and then seeing if it naturally kind of dissipates a little bit. But you do want to delay that, because if it's going to set you up to feel worse after that conversation, you don't want to be doing that for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. You could do what I do with snacking, make it difficult. Yeah. So if one of my little tricks, which you've mentioned on this show numerous times, is I might take,
2 almonds,
2 chocolate covered almonds, or 3, and I'll go and sit
on. You don't ever do 3.
No, I do. I've
slipped.
I've slipped. But I will do that on purpose so that I have to go and sit on the couch. And if I do want to have more, I've got to get up again and go and do that, which is a pain in the ass. And it gives me that time to go, are you sure you want to do this? Mm-hmm. So the same concept.
Yeah, that's delaying.
Delay it.
Yeah.
Put your phone somewhere, distract yourself with something, which I guess binging shows movies is a good one for that.
Yeah. Or have a friend that you text instead. Like that's your go-to friend.
Oh, that's a great idea.
You know, you can often set that up with people and say, or the friend might even say, you message me instead of messaging him or her or whatever, you know, every time. And I'll be that person for you.
And there's probably apps or something you could do with your phone where you can't contact people at a certain time. I'm sure there is actually. There's
put
something.
your own time limits on.
Yeah.
I would also say maybe come off social media for a little bit.
That's a good one.
If you're seeing your ex, even if they're not happy, Facebook and Instagram, you know, you don't really see what's truly going on.
Well, no one's posting,
sad, crying.
Well, people do. Yes, people do that.
but
totally
for the most
thing.
part, it's kind of like that glossy, how amazing is my life.
Yeah.
So if you're watching your ex, you know, looking like they're having a great time and out at the bars and things like that, then you're going to be thinking that you didn't matter, you're not important and they're fine. That won't be the case. It's just that that's what it looks like.
Oh, that would be such a hard one. Like when I went through probably the one big breakup in my life, there was no social media, so it was not a worry. But maybe there was, you know, Facebook might have just been starting. But that would be such a hard one to go through, to see them and like you said, you're assuming that they've already moved on, that they're having an amazing time. But if you actually analyze it, it's just a photo.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would also say, depending on your emotional state, that's also where maybe you want to avoid certain places for a period of time.
Yeah.
You know, when you were saying about breakup stories, when I was giving the example about my ex-boyfriend that died, he was a chicken treat manager when I was a cashier. So he originally wasn't my manager. He worked at another store and then he eventually got transferred to the same store as me. And when we broke up, because he cheated on me and started dating the girl he cheated on me with, that was obviously very devastating for me. He would sometimes lend her his car, and so I would just come to work and see her car in the car park.
Yeah.
I was only 17. That was just, by that point I was 18. That was devastating.
Yeah.
And then she would come to change the cars back and I would see them interact and, think of that little 18-year-old and I want to give her a hug. That was
So how did you
hard.
get through that period?
Well, I probably just would have blocked that out in terms of the emotional at that moment, because I wouldn't have been able to cry at work.
Yep.
But it would have felt terrible. And you know what? Probably what supported me back then, and I might suggest this to clients as well, is have a think about the relationship. Like, even when you're in your devastated spot, think about the relationship and really look at what were the things that didn't work for you. I mean, for most people, there was things that wouldn't work unless you were totally, absolutely still in love with that person and it really came out of nowhere. And, but even then you might think, she didn't or he didn't do blah, blah, blah. So I get them to really think about what didn't quite match, what didn't quite line up, and get them to really see that, well, for you, you want those things to be different for you to be in a relationship, next time.
Yeah.
So just reminding them that it wasn't a perfect relationship, can be helpful as well, so that person does have flaws. And look, just so people know, we have about 30% perpetual problems in every relationship we have. Yep. So that means we can't really resolve those ones. They come up time and time again. I would have 30% with you that are certain things, but if I was with somebody else, that would be a different, 30% worth of issues. So
I think I could quite easily name 30%.
I think if you went through the podcast, you'd probably pick what the 30% would be. Gift giving, effort.
Yeah. We had a good chat about one the other night.
Yes.
Yep. Sorry, go on.
So I think that going back through and going, okay, these are the things that didn't actually land and work for you in the relationship. So we'd need to make sure that those are different in the future. So just reminding them that relationship wasn't perfect, that person wasn't perfect, they're still human, because often we can look at it with rose-colored glasses. You're looking back and just thinking, oh my gosh, we had so many good times and how am I going to be without you? And you're forgetting the times that you fought and the times that, things didn't go so well.
Oh, you've without prompting, you've lined up a segue into my story perfectly.
I'm very good at that.
Yeah. So my breakup story, my one and only, it is very much related to the rose-tinted glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the phrase? So we lived together for a few years. So I think we were together overall for maybe 3. I think she'd moved into my apartment after the first year. So I think we lived together for 2. And I would say for at least, I I think for at least a year, maybe 18 months, I knew I did not want to marry her. And I would have been mid-20s. So, you're starting to think about marriage and kids and what you want your life to look like. And I've told you this story and you this part of the story, and I know you like it. I had a apartment that was on like a second floor, and we had a balcony, and I would quite often, when I'd had enough of, because we had issues, it wasn't an amazing relationship, it was sort of up and down. And on the down times, I would go out on the balcony and sort of visualize what I actually did want in a wife, which turned out to be you. I didn't know it was you at the time. But I didn't do anything about it for way too long. I let it drag on way too long. I finally worked up the courage to end it. This part is insane, and I would not recommend doing this, but I actually moved out of my own apartment and went and did a house sitting gig for a friend for about 3 weeks because I felt so guilty about, ending it. And I guess I was certainly not a carer, but I was like the very stable one in the relationship, and she was not as stable as me. And so I felt a lot of guilt and a lot of not pressure, but responsibility to make sure she was okay.
Yeah.
My mum thought I was insane for moving out of my apartment, and yeah, absolutely, probably was. So anyway, within, I would say, I was fine when I was house sitting. It was when I went back to the apartment and, you start triggering, memories start triggering of, the good times. Yeah. I forgot all of the bad times. Like a crazy person. Like I totally...
Well, it's almost like going back to the honeymoon period. And you're not in the old habits and patterns and stuff because you've come in kind of fresh after having that house sitting job.
Yeah. Like the house sitting was like a little holiday. That was fine. The Ashes was on, so I was watching a lot of cricket. That was all totally fine. Yeah. It's so hard to visualize now how different I felt, like desperately wanted her back.
Yeah.
And she was ready to move on, but that only made me more desperate.
Yeah.
So then I, started getting in touch with her and then arranging to meet. And then one night we went out to a club in Northbridge. This is the crazy part about this story is I went home, right? I may as well say that I had a couple of Dexies and I could not get to sleep. I drove back to Northbridge, found her in the club, and this is by this stage like 3 a.m., then went and slept over at her house, and then I was back in. And then she moved back into my apartment, and I would say that day or the day after, I made a mistake. I knew I'd made a mistake.
Yeah.
I had to go through the whole thing, and that took about 6 months to sort of
And you know the thing
figure
about
that
that?
out.
The reason why that probably was never going to work is because there was nothing changed.
Oh, no. It was just me feeling a bit insane.
Yeah, but none of those dynamics, none of the patterns had changed or were different in any way. You didn't go
If
and
anything,
get support.
the second part was worse because I think deep down she knew that I knew I'd made a mistake. So it wasn't backed the way it was. That emotional connection was nowhere near as strong, and it was just a matter of time. And then I had to do it again, and then obviously it's the whole, I can't believe you did this to me a second time, and then the guilt that I felt the second time.
It's awful. But, it's funny when people do think about, feeling bad about breaking up with somebody, I'll always say to them, but think about what you're telling me. You're telling me, you're knowing they're not right for you. You're not enjoying being around them. You might not even be looking forward to coming home because they're there. It's all these things you're telling me. Imagine someone said that about you.
Yeah.
That's not your person.
Yeah, absolutely.
You wouldn't want someone thinking that about you. So you're doing both of you a favour by not having that continue.
So the one lesson I wanted to share with people is be aware of this rose-tinted glasses theory because it is true. And if you're in it right now, do whatever you can to really process that and look at it from a logical point of view.
That's where I always suggest to people, I know I'm jumping ahead because you've got a bit of a plan, but I'm going to do it anyway.
That's okay. We jump ahead all over the spot anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Good. So I will always suggest to people, and I suggest it really quickly, when they've broken up with somebody, I would say to them, I know that you're not ready to date just yet and you're telling me you're not ready to date. I still want you to do the list. And I'll make them reflect on previous relationships and go, what did you like about that? Right, put them on the list. What are the things you didn't like about that relationship? Great, let's flip them around. We never put negatives on a list. So say, for example, they thought back to a relationship 10 years ago and they liked that they had fun together. They had good sex together. Great, put them on the list. What didn't you like? He didn't communicate very well. Great, let's change that around. We want someone that communicates well.
Yep.
That's on the list. So we're just really thinking about what's important to us. I had a client once where he said he needed on his list someone that could sort of handle practical jokes and that kind of, fun side of a relationship. Because he had a girlfriend where every time he'd go to joke with her and do one of those silly things, she'd just give him a certain look and be like, oh, this isn't going to end well for you. So he knew he needs that. So that, again, that would be a good one for him, that when he was, going through that breakup and feeling really terrible, I was pointing that out to him. You would have had your whole life not being able to have jokes and doing something that's really important to you, because he'd grown up kind of with his family being quite practical jokers and things. So that was a big part for him.
And having a practical joker with a non-practical joker is not a good combo.
That's exactly what it was. So for him, he just felt like it was always serious.
Yep.
So I always say to everyone, get that list down as quick as you can, because when you don't expect it, that's likely to happen.
Yep.
Or you might be thinking, well, I'm not ready to date, so that's fine. I don't need to think about the list. And then you end up, your friends convince you after a few drinks to go on one of the dating apps and you've ended up meeting up with somebody. And now you're going to compromise without realizing it, because there'll be certain qualities that will draw you in.
Yep.
So my ones that I would always say that are going to draw you in would be probably looks, charm, humour.
Yep.
You're going to be really drawn in. And then you're not really asking, what's your relationship like with your family? What's your career like? What are they like with money? Like, you really want to look at all of these different areas of this person's life. But if you're drawn in by the looks and the humour straight away, I guarantee it, you will compromise.
Well, we may as well keep going down this path of, because before we hit record, we were talking about rebounding. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's an important one to talk about, because I imagine you're in such a vulnerable state.
Yeah. And if you've had a terrible relationship ending, like whether it be the last year of the relationship had gone downhill or whether it was just the last 6 months, but your ego is going to be probably a little bit fragile. And so often people will jump on the apps much quicker than what they ever think they're going to, just because they want that ego stroked. And so then when that happens, they start chatting to people. And again, that's when they're compromising, because they're thinking, oh, this is just a bit of fun. This isn't a big deal. And then if that person starts showing them lots of lovely attention, I want to say love bombing, it depends on the certain personality type, but they really are getting a lot of feedback that's really lovely, that person can really feel so good and so connected to that person really quickly that either they're not seeing the true person because it's been clouded by all this energy and attention, and that goes away, after a period of time, or it could be that, we've chosen poorly.
Yeah.
You didn't actually look underneath for all the other qualities that are there to see if that person, is actually stable or, what's going on for them.
The whole existence of the apps and how easy it is now to start dating again.
And not just one person, but multiple. I've often got people, 6 people on the go, just seeing how they pan out.
Yeah. And like you said, it's an ego boost. It's a endorphin hit, I'd imagine. So what's your advice there?
I guess we have everything down.
Yeah, we have to talk in a perfect world. And obviously
I would say slow everything down. You need time to heal. So you need time to come back to yourself. And my other tip would be really start coming back to your identity. When we're in a relationship, we compromise a lot. There's a lot of there's a lot of what would you like to do, and we can lose ourselves a little bit. People often say that, that they, stopped going to the gym, or they stopped hanging out with their friends, or they stopped doing the activities that they really liked to carve out space and time for their partner. So now that you don't have that, the way that I see it is, if you think about your life like a pie chart, so imagine you've drawn a big circle on the page and you've got all the different areas in your life. You've got friends, you've got work, you've got family. Your relationship was a big chunk of that pie chart. Now that's gone. So that's going to feel really empty. So it's about making sure that you can either expand the other areas to, kind of take up that space that's now been created, or putting something new in there. So I've actually got a client right now who's going through a breakup literally in the last week or 2 weeks, and she's hitting the gym again.
Yep.
She's remembering that she felt really good when she used to go to the gym, and so she's really making that commitment to herself, that she's doing that movement, getting out of the house, even if it's not the same time in the day. Like she's not at the level of, kind of nailing that just yet, but she's making herself go.
Yep.
I would say come back to your preferences. Like, really have a day of thinking, what am I drawn to? What is it that I like? Why do I like that? Really come back to who you are and what makes you tick.
Yep.
This could be a chance for you to do your vision again and really see what's important to you, what matters for you. And then you could work towards different areas of your life that's away from the relationship.
So let's just quickly remind people, if you're new to the show, we have an episode. It's one of the beginning ones. It might be 3, 4 or 5. It's about creating a vision for the future. And Tracey steps you through step by step, steps you through step by step, all the different areas of your life, and you create a vision for what you're. And it's a really, really good exercise to get excited.
Yes,
about
because
the
people
future.
often, when they've had a breakup, they feel lost. Whether that's because now I'm changing accommodation, like I'm leaving the house that I've always been in or been in for a long time. I'm no longer having the same routines and plans that, were there before. So you want to have different ideas of what would make you excited about life again. And what can you focus on? So by creating that vision to start with, then you can start doing the baby steps towards it, but it gives you a roadmap of this is where I'm heading.
Yeah. Would it be accurate to say, this is just my working theory, if you do rebound too quick and jump on the apps way too fast, and everyone's different, so there's no judgment here, but my theory is you're just delaying the grief. Like I would imagine what happens is, you probably feel good while you're dating a few different people, and isn't that saying, the best way to get over someone is to get under someone?
Yes.
So you're doing that, and you're getting those nice feelings, but surely at some point.
Yes, that's definite. And in fact, that's one of the things I reassure my clients, that maybe their partner has moved on much quicker than what they either expected or thought was appropriate. And I'll often say to them, don't worry, they've still got to do the grieving as well. It will actually, to be honest, it would depend on the circumstance, because sometimes if a person stayed in a relationship for far too long than what felt healthy for them, they would have disconnected and been doing their own processing long before they've said those words to their partner. So they might actually be ready to move on quicker. So there's no right or wrong. It's really coming down to, have you actually processed it? Have you actually figured out what you want for the future? What would work for you in a relationship? And that might be quicker than what their partner has experienced. But say they haven't properly done that work, they will feel it at some point. And it will just be delayed because they're in the honeymoon period with the new relationship, but they've also not stopped and reflected really, what is it about the old relationship that wasn't working? Can I make sure that it's not going to be the case, moving forward? And if they've done none of that work, they're probably going to repeat those patterns.
I wanted to go back a step just to fully touch on this around support networks. So you've just had a breakup. Obviously, having a good support network is really important. What's your advice around that and figuring out who are the right people to help? Or if you maybe don't have a big support network, what can you do to...
I'd say go with how you feel. So say you do have a reasonable sized support network. It might not necessarily be the people in your innermost circles that might be the most supportive to you, depending on their relationship with the person. So I know that when I broke up with, in my marriage, one of my best friends, because she absolutely loved Michael, she wasn't the person I went to.
Michael is your ex-husband.
My ex-husband, yeah.
Husband number 1.
Yep. Well, you're number 1. But when I was coming out of that relationship, the people that I was probably closest to, because I was worried about judgment and not worried about, I was receiving judgment. So
that's something I want to talk about as well, but keep going.
Yeah, so they weren't necessarily the people that felt most safe for me at that time. So I would choose sort of, the people that gave me that nice feeling of being supported and being understood. They were my people. So it might not always be the people that you think are going to be there for you. So go with how you feel, based on what you're feeling when you're talking to them and they're responding. Is that helpful? Is that not? You just be your own judge. And sometimes I would say that catching up with people that are a bit more, we have an episode where we talk about your support networks, and we do an exercise where it shows you certain levels of friendships, like rings.
Yep.
So if someone's in your outer, edges of your network, they could still be great because you might not want to talk about it. When you've got your close people, around you, they might always say, oh, how you feeling? Are you okay? And even just the tone of voice might set you off. Whereas if you've got a person that's a bit more oblivious and not really that sensitive or, aware of everything in your life, they might be the perfect person to go out with and have a good chat or a dance or whatever, and they're not going to make you cry because, you're not going to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah.
They might just distract you enough that you can switch off from it a little bit, whereas your close people are probably going to always bring it up. So I think, again, it's very personal of what level and stage you feel like you're ready for. For some people it might be they could do that after a few weeks. For some people it might take months and months for them to feel ready to do that.
Yeah. Okay, that's good advice.
So again, just coming back to your own, what feels right for you. And I think it's just making sure that if you are sharing information with people, you're feeling really comfortable with that. You're not worried that anything's going to come back to bite you on the bum or to be thrown back in your face or anything else, Yeah. Because you're in a very vulnerable space when you're sharing all these things about your breakup.
You touched on the judgment that you felt because you were the one who, I guess, made the decision to end your marriage. Talk to me about judgment and how it can impact, because often, obviously, people will go, well, you were the one who broke it off, so you should be fine.
Yes. So there's two things that happen. One, people think that, it's an easy decision to make, and therefore they might think that you're fine after that breakup. But even the person that made the decision, they still need support. And I often have a lot of clients that will complain that maybe their parents are still catching up with their ex and having them over for dinner, but not really checking in on them. And it will be because their parents think, oh, you made that decision, but that was a hard decision to make. And I know firsthand because I would have been dealing with that for a whole year in counselling beforehand, with that person. So for them, they would have agonised over it. And they'll be worried that people think that they're just giving up or that they didn't try hard enough, And in fact, I definitely know, and my therapist friends, we talk about this sometimes, we know we get the couples where it's just ticking a box.
Yep.
Where they just come for we tried counselling. And that's why you've got to always work with the person with the lowest motivation. Because if you're blind to that, you're thinking, great, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we can help them this way. Inevitably it doesn't work out like that. So you need to know where the motivation is. So I think that, it's a really hard decision. So you do need to still support people even if they've been the one to make that decision.
And how did you deal with the judgment?
I think I probably just really turned towards the ones where I didn't feel judged by.
Yeah. Okay.
And what I would also say is if you can open up to people that you are feeling judged by, depending on the relationship. So say, for example, in my situation, if I had have been able to really, open up to my mum or I'm pretty sure I did with my mum, but she would have been disappointing because, again, we've talked about this before. Everyone loved Michael. So everyone would have been disappointed.
We've established throughout the multiple episodes we've recorded, Michael was an amazing guy and we all love him.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I probably didn't sound authentic just then. But that's the kind of hard part about your breakup was he was an amazing guy and it's not like, you didn't like him.
Yeah.
And so that would have added a whole nother dimension to your what you were dealing with.
Yeah. Well, because sometimes when people break up, they do. They bitch about the person.
Yeah.
They did this, they did that, blah, blah, blah. And that can be part of, kind of almost defending your decision as to why you broke up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that if you are feeling any judgment, it's usually coming from misunderstanding. They're not understanding what was going on for you. So if you can really open up as much as you can, and I know that, regardless of that, you might have the parents or the friends or the people that are just going to always see it from their perspective and not be open to that. But you can speak your truth.
Yeah.
And that's powerful in itself, of really explaining for me in my situation, it was I just didn't have those feelings. And so again, coming back to that's not fair on him. He deserves to have a wife that absolutely adores him.
And I would say in terms of judgment, like if people are judging you, like don't take that on. Like, I know that's easier said than done.
Well, that's their stuff. That's why.
It's what they have to deal with.
And if it would be because they would stay in a relationship, whether they're miserable or not, then they are going to judge you because you've shown them something that they're not prepared to do.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a tricky one to put into practice. But if people are judging you, and you might love them, and so I'm not saying cut them out of your life, but that's not yours to own.
Yeah.
What other people think of you is none of your business.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Because it's coming from their own interpretations, their own life stories, their own life experiences and things. So, yeah, lots of that stuff has very little to do with you.
Yeah.
It's their own interpretations. And it also might trigger them from their own experiences. You know, if they were the person that was broken up with in a similar circumstance, that certainly is going to trigger them with their own stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we move on to moving on, like when the person is ready to move on, is there anything I haven't covered that you want to talk about? Because I was about to move into, how do you know that you're ready to date again?
Okay. Well, I'd just say, just to recap, just bunker down, really nurture yourself, find that time to let the emotions move through you, create that space for yourself. This is where your self-care and your nurturing is really important. So again, thinking about it like you're unwell physically can help you go, yeah, I'm going to just plonk on the couch. I'm not going to do those plans. I'm going to have an easy dinner. I'm not going to stretch myself, while I'm feeling this emotionally fragile. So it's just being super loving and gentle with yourself, asking for support, like letting people know what they could do. Because even if it's just going, hey, just check on me. Or can you just make sure I've got some plans on a Sunday afternoon because that's my most lonely time.
Yeah, that's a good one. I actually just thought if you have just gone through a breakup and you haven't listened to other episodes, you could binge this podcast. Like there'd be a ton of self-care tips and things that you could learn and get excited about the future and, the whole new you kind of thing.
Yep. But even again with retreats, and whether it's our retreat or other retreats, there's loads of retreats nowadays that, you could go and do that's coming back to yourself or trying something different. Like there's yoga retreats, there's, meditation retreats, there's all sorts of things.
Yeah. So I imagine there's no, definitive answer to this question, but how do you know you're ready, or when do you think is the right time to maybe dip your toe in the water and try again?
Well, I would think if we've stopped the tears, so if the tears have stopped and you're not having, that emotional, outburst regularly, like don't get me wrong, you might have one every 6 months or, something, but if it was coming, quite regularly, you're probably not ready to be moving into another relationship while you're still processing the last. I'd say when you're really, really clear about what you're looking for and what you need, when you feel like you know yourself well and you wouldn't lose yourself in a relationship. And what I mean by that is because people can adapt and be very flexible, if they're that kind of agreeable personality, and you can look back at the people-pleasing episode, for that, for more information around that. But you don't want to be moving into a relationship when you're not kind of solid within yourself, knowing how to take care of yourself, knowing what your preferences are, knowing what you like to do, because you want to bring that into the new relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is probably a good point to sort of expand on is it's an opportunity for you, and I'm not the therapist here, but it's an opportunity.
You've been around me enough. You're kind of like an apprentice.
Yeah, because I think we've seen it in friends and where people, their whole identity is wrapped up in this relationship, and that isn't healthy.
No.
So it's an opportunity for you to, don't know if reinvent yourself is the correct terminology, because it might not be reinventing. Rediscover yourself is probably a better way to describe it. And don't rush that period. Like that's probably the one thing that, we're sort of mid to late 40s now. So we've seen friends go through cycles of marriages ending or whatever. And the common theme to me seems to be that people really do jump into another relationship really quickly. And that to me just seems like you haven't grieved, you haven't figured out who you are and what you want and what you're looking for in a new partner, and allowing that time. And I don't know if it's because people are scared that, am I going to meet the right person? Or there's a person, they seem okay, maybe we should give that a go.
Yeah, I see that. I see that with friends. I see that, in my office, almost like a level of, desperation might sound too strong, but it's got an element of that in
urgency,
it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
There's an urgency about it that,
I'm not going to find my person. I'm not going to meet somebody.
Yeah.
So then that's where I'm, again, saying that people then compromise far too much because they're not actually thinking, what am I really wanting? What am I needing in a relationship? So not even just wanting, but needing. And it's being really honest with yourself. So an example of that is, and I might have given this before in previous episodes, but for me personally, on my list, I needed to have someone that was strong enough that could stand their ground. Because if you had no backbone and I could railroad you, I would lose respect for you pretty quickly.
Yes. Yeah, you have talked about this.
Yeah. And so I've got to know myself well enough to know I can't choose a partner like that, and so early on, if you had never sort of pushed back, at all and had been too much of a yes person, then I wouldn't really understand that you can do that.
Yeah, because I do come across as a softie sometimes, but...
Oh, no, he's very... Not weird.
I have backbone.
Yes. Certain, settled. He's just... I might say something like, oh, in that video, I think the silent part is a bit too long. No, it's fine. I like it. Oh, okay. he's definitely... You'll back yourself up. But that's good. I need that. I know I need that.
Yeah, you do.
If you were a walkover, I'd lose respect. I'd also feel like I was running the relationship. I would also feel like I'm driving everything and I've not got a co-pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's me personally.
Yeah.
So again, if you don't know yourself, you don't know what you're needing to look for.
And just take your time. Like, really take your time.
Yeah.
I just think that's the best advice I could give.
Yep. And look, throughout a relationship, we are butting up against each other and working through issues, like kind of like what we've talked about when we're like, what did your family do? That's not normal, or that's not da-da-da, and vice versa to mine. You're kind of always going, how do you do that? And you're figuring out the best ways to do things, or kind of what, your version of normal is. That if you can do more of your own work and get rid of your triggers, like figure out in your last relationship, what really triggered me, what really pissed me off? Can I work on that individually so I'm not bringing that into the next relationship? Like if you were someone that always got jealous or insecure, well, now's your time to work on your self-esteem and your self-worth. So you're coming into that relationship more healed.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why it's going to sound like a shameless plug, but there's so many previous episodes you could go back and listen to. Like if you're a people pleaser, go and listen to that one. Like this is the opportunity for you to move forward in a whole new, different, exciting direction in your life.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
And the more that you actually look after yourself, know what you want for the future, you're going into those dates much more solid. You're showing who you are. You're talking about what you want because you've thought about it.
Yeah.
If you never thought about it and someone asks you that question, you're wishy-washy.
Yeah.
And that's again where we compromise too much because we think, oh, your plan sounds good. They'll jump on board with that. But you've not actually stopped and thought, well, what would be my preferences?
Yeah. Okay. Well, feels like a good place to wrap it up. I think we've shared some good advice. Is there any one thing you want people to remember from this episode?
Just be gentle with yourself.
Yep. Just
be really, really gentle. There's no time frame, of what's right or wrong, and how long it takes you. And actually, it depends on how much work you do around it. I've had people where they've really committed time to try and sit and process and think about things and release the emotions with it, go back to times where they felt really hurt and, again, think about it, process it, cry it out. They've done a lot of active work and they could move through that much quicker. Just think of everything like energy, and the more that you can move through that energy, the quicker you get to the other side.
Yep.
So just do that in the most loving, gentle, nurturing ways. Think of yourself in that third person. Get a photo of yourself, put it on a mirror, love on that person. Just be as gentle to yourself as what you would do for somebody else. Look for those opportunities to love on yourself by buying yourself a little treat or giving yourself a time out, creating things to look forward to. You want to really be putting things in place that freshen up the energy and mix things up because you were in Groundhog Day before in your relationship, and therefore all those routines will trigger you to remember, oh, he's not here having coffee with me, or we're no longer doing the brunch on the Sunday morning. Like all those routines are going to trigger you to feel sad that they're no longer, kind of current. So put in place new things that you look forward to. Have a girls' night once a month, If you don't have a good support network, look on social media. There's loads of free activities. There's loads of meetup groups for friendships and, activities. There's run clubs for fitness, all sorts of things that you can do to get out, be amongst people, get fresh energy, try different things. Like now's your time to really nurture, but then create fresh energy.
Yeah. Great advice. And it's funny, like when you picture who's listening to this episode, you do kind of picture a female, but absolutely, if you're a guy listening to this, all the same advice applies.
Absolutely. And for guys, again, try and stay away from those pubs, because that's kind of the place where your friends might say, hey, come on, we'll go out for a beer. But if you're knowing that you want to stay away from alcohol because you're trying to get onto a bit of a healthier lifestyle, or you're knowing that that's not good for you in your mental state, then, try and switch it up, and even just be honest with your friend and say, I'm trying to stay away from alcohol right now. Could we go for a walk, a coffee, a game of darts, whatever, game of pool, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just you be honest about what you need and what's helpful and what's not helpful.
Yeah, great advice. How do you segue from this topic to talk about a relationship retreat?
Well, to be honest, when you were saying before about how you came back into your relationship with your ex and nothing changed and you quickly realised that you'd made a mistake.
Yes.
When I get contacted by people wanting counselling, saying we've broken up or we're going to reconcile, I always suggest the retreat to them, because as much as counselling can be helpful, you really want to look at all of the aspects of your relationship. Like, it didn't work for a reason. Let's go in and look at what those reasons were and try and create new habits, new patterns, new routines, and really see, how to create that shift. Because if you're just going and talking about things, a couple of times and then going, we're going to figure it out, you're not going to really have those changes that you need to make.
Yeah.
So absolutely, if you're on the verge of a breakup or you're going to reconcile and give it another shot, I would say try that.
Yeah.
Because you want to have those changes, see if they make a difference.
So if you're new to the show, and the reason I keep saying that is because I think there will be new listeners because of the topic of this show. Tracey runs a relationship retreat with your co-founder, Tina.
Yes. Who
is a psychologist. You're both relationship experts. And that is a 2-day retreat in Mandoon Estate, the winery, Mandoon. Yeah. And you learn all sorts of...
you learn communication skills, conflict resolution. You look at your patterns in terms of the way that you interact, what your love languages are, what your early childhood experiences are that shape, some of your likes and preferences and behaviours. We look at intimacy and sex. We look at creating a vision for the future, which obviously is the things that we always talk about in here, that we want to dream it to create it. Yep. We look at expectations of each other in behaviour and in tasks and responsibilities. So we do look at all areas of your relationship to make sure that they're how you want them to be.
And there's one coming up pretty soon. I don't know if there's any spots left on that one, though.
Oh, yeah, I think
It probably sold out. So the next one is November.
Yes. Yep. Yes. We do have some spaces for that. But yes, I'm pretty sure that September is sold out. That one sold out really fast. So I'm not sure how November's going to go, but September just...
Yeah. Yep. So if you want some information on that, that is available on the website, which is traceyquayle.com. And then there's links to the relationship retreat website from there. I guess the other retreat we run is very applicable to a breakup.
Yep, coming back to yourself.
Yeah, so that is the Reconnect to Self retreat, which I am involved in that one. So Tracey and I run that. Tracey runs the program. I'm there for moral support, tech, and...
no, you've got your own sections now.
Oh, yeah, no, I do. I forgot about that. Yeah, I do run one little activity, and I also DJ. Do you want to give us a very... 10 to 20 second spiel or 30 second spiel about what that is?
Yeah, so this is 2 days away in a beautiful spot in nature, allowing you to reconnect to yourself, looking at inner child work, nervous system regulation techniques, and just showing yourself that you're really, really important and you matter, and giving you all the tips and techniques that you can take back into your normal life to find that balance, and to just slow everything down from the crazy busyness of our lives. Like, I don't think we give ourselves enough time, to come back to our centre. So we will teach you all the techniques that you can use in your everyday life.
And I would say that one is a perfect
for breakups.
For someone who's going through a breakup and you want to rediscover who you are, that retreat is spot on.
Yeah, and we do breath work, so that would be a good release of, energy, anything that's been built up.
I mean, the whole thing.
Yeah.
That should be a target market for us, actually.
Yeah, the breakups. And you know what my favourite thing is? Getting all my meals not only made, but no dishes, don't have to think about food, don't have to think, what am I making for dinner? Nope, it's all done for us. Yeah. So, you're getting away from your real life responsibilities and just nurturing yourself and focusing on, the things that matter for you.
Yeah. So there's one left this year. It is in October. It is October 17 to 19. There is a wait list, so depending on when this episode drops, there may be a couple of spots left. So again, just go to the website, traceyquayle.com.
But this will be your last chance this year because we don't run them during summer.
It's too hot in summer because we've got this amazing spot in Chittering, and from sort of May through to October, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But the summer period is pretty dry and barren
not
and
as
hot.
Yeah, not as desirable for us. So this is your last chance for this year.
Yeah. So get in if you can. Okay. If you want to follow Tracey on social media, it is at traceyquayle.therapy. So we're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You can check us out on YouTube and follow Tracey on LinkedIn. Just use her name, and that is it. Thank you. Great job today.
Thanks, you too.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.